for whatever reason, through a lot of mouth breathing and through passing it on from generation to generation, the shape of our heads have changed, and the navel cavity is sort of shrunk, and then this is why we sort of get these sort of tired eyes sometimes, and it's changed the shape of the human skull.
The recording session. 3, 2, 1. Boom. We live.
Boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom.
Watching
boom,
in slow motion as
boom,
you
boom.
turn around and say, boom, boom,
Take my
breath away. Hello everybody, this episode is about something which we all do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we don't always give it much thought. We are going to talk about breathing and breathing exercise, also known as breath work, today. So different ways that you can help yourself out using your breath. And Sal, you've been breathing a lot longer than both of us. So what have you learned?
Ageist. Well, as Joe Rogan says, breathing, it's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. Breathing is one of those aspects of our body. And I'm amazed, I'm almost 40 years old and I just discovered breathing, basically. Although I've been doing it my entire life. So it's,
really?
It's one of those things that you have to become conscious about. And once you are, and let's maybe rewind. So I read this book called Breath by James Nestor, and he found out several interesting aspects. He's been researching this for many years. He's an investigative journalist, and he's been in the field of breath work, and he's been talking to a lot of scientists, to a lot of doctors, and to find out, to reveal some amazing aspects of breath work. And basically he found out that the way we breathe, which channel we use to breathe, the mouth, the nose, which side of the nostrils, and so on, the rhythms and the patterns we use to breathe, and these are exercises in breath work, really influence our body on a very deep level, ranging from healing you from diseases, ranging also improving your athletic performance, changing the sympathetic nervous system and modifying it in a way that your immune system raises or lowers. So it deeply influences whether you feel sick or healthy, whether you use the full potential that you have as an athlete, but even if you're a hobbyist, let's say like myself in sports, or and also, of course, then the results also influence the mind, or the oxygen, of course, in the whole body, includes also the brains. So, it's very interesting. And James wrote a blog post about this. So maybe you also want to talk about what you, found in this book that hits you the most.
Yeah, definitely. So the book was called, Sal, remind me, I just read it. It's James Nestor, The Art of Breathing.
Breath, the New Science of a Lost Art.
Correct, yes. No, it's fascinating, really. So breathing is something, breath work, who we say, breathing sounds a bit easy. Breath work is something which I've heard about a lot, but I've only started putting it into practice in the past year or so. With the Wim Hof Method. So I do the Wim Hof breathing every day, which is one type of breathing exercise. There are hundreds out there, but it's incredible, really, because of course, if you just think about something simple like how you feel every day, a lot of that can be traced back to the breath, but it's often through the autonomic system, right? It's automatic, and so without being conscious of it, the breath reflects how we feel, and it sort of feeds into each other. So if we can control the breath and change the rhythm and the depth of the breath, then you can also change your emotions. There's a really good TED Talk by Alan Watkins called Being Brilliant Every Single Day. And he says, well, it starts with the physiology, so your heart rate, but your heart rate is influenced directly by your breathing rate. So if you want to slow down your heart rate, you need to breathe in deeply and slowly. And then from that, the emotions come, the feelings, the thoughts, the behaviors, and then, of course, what you're doing, your performance. So it all goes back to the breath. And instead of just being an accident, it's something that we can be very, very conscious of. So just a few practical pointers from the book. Well, number one, it depends what you want to do with the breathing exercise. So another really, really good TED Talk. I keep veering off from the book, but there's a really good TED Talk about breathing. And he says, so you've got water breath. So water breath is something which you sort of, you drink all day, every day, so you should try and be conscious of. You've got whiskey breath, which you need to be sparing with, but it will sort of bring you down a level to calm you down. And then you've got coffee breath, which is when you want to get a bit jacked up, get fired up. So a few breathing exercises in this book. He talks about slow rhythmic breathing. So he says that 5.5 seconds in and then 5.5 seconds out is the perfect breath, because that will give you usually 5.5 liters of air. And so I found this metronome. So if you find a metronome on YouTube, which goes to 11 beats per minute, and for the last few weeks, I've been putting that on in the background when I've been reading or studying. And so it just clicks, and then I know that I need to breathe in, and then click, breathe out. So that goes at 5.5 seconds for an inhale and an exhale. And after a while, it's sort of you get into that rhythm, and it's a really sort of soothing rhythm to get on with whatever you're doing. So you don't have to stop and do breathing. You're breathing all the time, so you just have to become conscious of it. Second thing, the nostrils. Breathe through the nostrils. We'll come back to that, I think. But he says always breathe through the nose for a variety of reasons. And also the nostril that you use, for example, if you breathe through your right nostril, he does 2 rounds of 12 breaths through the right nostril in order to increase his body temperature. So, for example, after lunch, he says if he wants to help his digestion, he needs to increase his body temperature, to increase his circulation, to increase his heart rate. He breathes through the right nostril. And if he wants to calm down, if he's stressed or nervous about something, then he'll breathe through the left nostril for 2 or 3 rounds of 12 breaths. And then there's also, I'll wrap up with this, in the book, he talks about the Wim Hof Method, which we've talked about before, which, as I said, I've been doing for about a year now. And that would be an example of coffee breathing from this TED Talk, so to increase your body temperature. And it's an example of tummo breathing. So there are other types of tummo. I'm not sure if I've just butchered the pronunciation, but other types of tummo breath work on YouTube, which are quite interesting. There's one called the fire belly, or tummo fire breathing, which is fun, and it's really short. It takes about 5 minutes. But yeah, there's loads of stuff in the book, and it explains the science of it and how it changes your physiology. So yeah, it's really interesting.
I think that's important to stress that aspect, that is all scientifically backed. Because if somebody's listening here for the first time, and sorry, Josh, I just interrupted you. I'll to you in a second. It's all deeply researched by this guy. So it's one of those books that I wholeheartedly recommend. And actually, it was Joshua who got me into this, because you were the one who first mentioned, I believe, to James, maybe, or was it in the podcast? Wim Hof, exactly. That's why we did the whole episode, and you got me started. I think also James probably on this whole to fall into this whole rabbit hole of breath work, which I'm very thankful for. And so now it's becoming kind of full circle and coming back with this new knowledge, let's say, from this book. But yeah, sorry, Joshua, you were saying.
No, it's fine, sir. I just had a few questions for some of the stuff that James was talking about, because I haven't read the book, but I read James's blog about it the other day, and it sounds interesting. So when you're, let me think, your 5.5 breaths in and out, is this all through the nose, or is it in through the nose, out through the mouth?
So 5.5 in and then 5.5 out.
In through the nose.
So it's definitely in through the nose.
Through the nose.
Do you remember, Sal, what it said in the book about the exhale? Definitely in through the nose, that's for sure. But the exhale, is there a preference?
I'm not sure that this book in particular talks about it, but there's this very interesting guy from Ireland. His name escapes me, but he wrote
Patrick McCowan.
Right, exactly, yes. And thank you. And his book called The Oxygen Advantage, and also in several videos, he actually encourages to also breathe out through the nose. Now, I haven't read this book yet, but it's definitely on my top 3 list of the next books, because I'm really looking forward to finding out how to, because it's specifically pointed at athletic performance. So I really would like to see how it works out, with running and then breathing through the nose, how that's going to work and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's generally a good idea to breathe out through the nose. Now, doing the Wim Hof method, breathing out through the nose can be a bit difficult. I already adapted it, breathing in through the nose. And my experience so far has been actually crazy. The last couple of weeks, my noses really did open up, my nostrils. My nose is, I got a big nose now. But it's strange. Like the amount of air that comes in, I can feel it has dramatically changed. So before I always had a running nose. And it's not that the nose now is completely dry or has been healed, but I can feel that something kind of adapted. So either the opening is wider of the nostrils, or maybe just the technique I'm using and the muscles have been adapted to this new airflow. I don't know.
And what are the advantages of breathing through the nose?
There are several advantages. I mean, the obvious ones, which we, I guess, learned also at school. I mean, stuff gets filtered out, bad stuff. So that's one thing. If you shut your mouth at night when you sleep, and I've been experimenting with this by taping my mouth actually, like it was suggested. Yeah, not in that way.
How do you not rip your moustache off when you take it off in the morning?
Well, I didn't tape it like the guys on YouTube with the whole duct tape all over the face. I just used a little bit of stripe on the side,
Dedication.
So you're not trying to close your mouth, actually. But I can assure you my mustache didn't come off.
So that stops.
How does that work for you? How does it work, Sal, in the evening, in the night? Do you find, I don't know, do you feel better in the morning or something like that?
Yeah. I did, and on several levels. One, when you're in the morning have this dry feeling in the back of your mouth.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
Or almost gone, let's say. Big difference. I forgot after a while of taping the mouth shut at night. After I forgot it once, there I noticed the difference. It's like with many things that you do, like when you start running the first time, you don't really feel those big changes, but when you don't do it, you feel really shitty. And it's the same thing here. So I forgot, and the mouth was completely dry the next morning. And then I also use an app at night that tracks my sleep quality. And the nights that I used the tape instantly went several percentage points up. So something seems to happen.
But that's a really great thing that anyone can do.
Yeah.
At any time, right? You just have to be conscious of am I breathing through my mouth? Am I breathing through my nose? And then continue what you're doing, but breathe through your nose. It's really great in the book as well. He goes into a little bit of how should we call it, human history, human biology, in that we used to breathe. We're actually designed to breathe through the nose. And that's why if you look back at Neanderthals, for example, their jaws are a lot squarer and set forward in the face, because it's all designed to aid airflow through the nose, and we had wider nostrils and everything. And for whatever reason, through a lot of mouth breathing and through passing it on from generation to generation, the shape of our heads have changed, and the navel cavity is sort of shrunk. And then this is why we sort of get these sort of tired eyes sometimes, and it's changed the shape of the human skull. because it's something. It's like a wave crashing against a rock. It doesn't make much difference with one breath, but 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for generations and generations, and slowly you're actually changing the shape of your face as well.
Was there a suggestion as to why the mouth breathing? Is it like like when you need more breath, you have to breathe through your mouth? So you should be breathing through your nose for the most part, but then maybe when you're out of breath, you breathe more in through the mouth, or is it like a backup? Why do we breathe through our mouths if we don't have to? Is there any suggestion as to that in the book?
Can you remember that, Sal?
I'm not sure if there was answered specific, but probably it was. Probably I just read the part.
I think it's in there.
But as he wrote in his book, and as also as you, James, mentioned on your blog, mouth breathing begets mouth breathing. So I think once you start that trend, it's very easy to keep going. And I think actually it's a very natural thing that our body sometimes switches to mouth breathing if for some reason the nose, for example, is closed. So if you had a cold, because your nose will be closed every now and then, the body has the great function that it has another channel through which we can breathe. Otherwise, we would die every time we have a cold, right? So mouth breathing is, let's say, an emergency feature. I think also animals have that if you close their, and there was some cruel experiments that have been done with animals to test that. They shut their noses, and they were breathing then through the mouth with all the negative effects that came with it. In fact, there's an interesting story in the book about this photographer. I don't remember his name, and I don't remember the exact time frame. I guess it was around the 60s maybe, but I could be totally wrong. Maybe it was it was actually in the 1800s something, at the end of the 19th century. Who traveled through much of the United States and I think Mexico to photograph actually Indian tribes, and he lived with them and was really respectful, and he was he kind of documented their way of living in a way that has never happened ever, neither before nor after. So it was like a gem in case studies and really highlighting their way of life, and raising also awareness about the tribes and their stories. But one thing he noted was that everybody had perfect teeth. Which is one side effect of nose breathing apparently. Everybody had there was very little cases of diseases. People were healthy, were also very athletically looking and stuff like that. So what he found out actually, and it was true from the States to Mexico, everywhere, all the tribes, across tribes, even tribes that have nothing to do with each other, they all breathe through the nose. And not only do they breathe through the nose, they are afraid of breathing through the mouth, as if there was bad spirits coming through the mouth. Like some Indians actually even eat with their mouths closed because they are afraid that air comes in. Their babies, when they sleep and when they are the newborns, if they see a hint of them opening their mouth, the parents will come and shut their mouths gently closed to train them early on to breathe through the nose. So there is something deeply rooted in the culture, some knowledge deeply rooted in some ancient knowledge they have passed on from generation to generation, that somehow they know, maybe through trial and error, who knows, without scientific backing, but they just know, maybe through observation, it's bad for you. Also the same thing with the Chinese some ancient Chinese books they found, some old scriptures talk about how bad breathing through your mouth is, and that you should only breathe through your nose. And so, there seems to be something really important about breathing through the nose. So we can breathe through the mouth, and I think the body has also a natural tendency to do it. But like the Indians, they discovered that you can kind of control it. You have to be aware of it. I think that's why this book is so great, because it makes you conscious about the fact that you are actually potentially a mouth breather, which is also an insult, or used as an insult, calling somebody a mouth breather.
You mouth breather.
But it's something that we never really think about. Never. When's the last time you were thinking, hey, am I actually breathing through the nose or through the mouth? Like, it's not a thought that crosses your mind.
45 minutes ago when I did my Wim Hof breathing.
Well, now it does, yeah. So,
but yeah, it's an amazing thing. And of course,
conscious right now.
making me self-conscious. I'll stop breathing altogether. But of
don't
course,
stop breathing. That's a bad idea.
We should wrap this one up. But of course, breathing and awareness of breath is a huge part of meditation. It's a huge part of yoga. A lot of sort of spiritual exercises focus on the breath, and there's a good reason for that.
Right.
So shut your mouth when you breathe. And then have a look online for all these different breathing exercises. What's the name of the book, Sal? James Nestor? Breath. That's a great one.
Alan Watkins was your TED Talk. Can you remember the other TED Talk with the whiskey?
Alan Watkins is more general, but he starts with talking about the breath.
Okay.
It's called Being Brilliant Every Single Day, and he says the breath affects your emotions and your thoughts and everything else because it affects your heart rate. So you can start by controlling the breath. And then the other TED Talk, give me a second. Really, really good when he talks about the water breath, coffee breath, and whiskey breath, because it's very, very well presented by Lucas Rockwood. Change your breath, change your life. So he gives a few different techniques as well. So there's plenty out there. It's just dive into it and breathe.
Sweet, man.
Breathe
through the nose.
All right, guys.
All right. Thanks
very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Keep breathing.
It's thing.
Don't stop.
Don't stop breathing. Leave that in.
Bye-bye.